Good morning, children. Welcome back to the online session of Sri Gokulam Public School, Guruvayur. Children, we are here with a new chapter, chapter 12, that is consumer protection. In our previous class, that is marketing, we studied that consumer is recognized as the king of the market. But do you know, consumers are exploited in number of ways. So in this chapter, we will study about consumer protection. The syllabus related to this chapter is Concept of Consumer Protection, Consumer Protection Act 1986, Meaning of Consumer and Consumer Protection, Rights and Responsibilities of Consumers, Who can file a complaint and against whom, Redressal Machinery, and Remedies available. Let us discuss each of these points. Concept of Consumer Protection. Consumer has a wide agenda. We can say consumer protection has a wide agenda. It aims at providing protection to consumer against exploitation and unfair trade practices of traders, manufacturers, and service providers. So, this consumer protection provides protection to the consumer against the exploitation of the traders, manufacturers, and service providers. It also educates the consumer about their rights and responsibilities. It provides speedy and inexpensive redressal of their grievances. So if they have any problem after using a product or after getting a service, so this consumer protection, it ensures speedy and inexpensive redressal of their problems or grievances. Then creating awareness among the consumers so that they organize themselves in the form of consumer organization, which would protect and promote their interests. So it also make awareness among the consumers that if they are organized, then there will be no exploitation from the traders or manufacturers. So it make them organized too. So here are some of the unfair trade practices which take place in the market, and the effect of which on consumer is shown on the other side. So defective and unsafe product like electric fault in iron. So what is the result of that? Risk of electric shock. Adulteration. Suffers from bad health due to adulterate food products. So consumption of adulterate food will lead to bad health. Then false and misleading advertising. Cheated by purchasing fake product. So misleading advertisement can the effect on the consumer is they will be cheated and they will purchase the fake product. Then hoarding or black marketing, have to pay a higher price. So we can see that the buyers, they hoard the product and increase the demand of the product. So hoarding creates higher price for a product, and the consumer unnecessarily have to pay the higher price for the hoarded product. Now, what is Consumer Protection Act? For the protection of consumer from the trading malpractices of the manufacturers, traders, and service providers, the Parliament enacted the Consumer Protection Act, that is CPA, in 1986. So, to give protection to the consumer from the malpractices of manufacturers, traders, and service providers, an act have been enacted in Parliament, which is known as Consumer Protection Act, and the date of this act is 1986. Consumer protection means protecting and promoting the consumer interest through speedy and inexpensive redressal of their grievances. So this is what the Consumer Protection Act aims at. That is, consumer protections means protecting and promoting the consumer interest through speedy and inexpensive redressal of their grievances. The Consumer Protection Act provides safeguards to consumer against defective goods, deficient services, and unscrupulous, exploitative, and unfair trade practices of consumers. The Act provides certain rights to the consumer. You have to remember that there are some rights to the consumer. So that is provided by this Consumer Protection Act with a view to empowering them to fight against such malpractices. You may have seen the advertisement Jago Grahak Jago. So that all come under this Consumer Protection Act. They are making aware about the rights of the consumer. The Act also provides for the formation of Consumer Protection Council in every district and state. and at the apex level to promote and protect the consumer rights. So there is Consumer Protection Council also available in every district and states, so that they can promote and protect the consumer rights. Now, what are the scope of Consumer Protection Act 1986? The scope of the act is very wide. It is applicable to all types of undertakings, big and small, whether the private or public sector or the cooperative sector, whether a manufacturer or a trader, and whether supplying goods or providing services. So this is the scope of the protection given to the by the Consumer Protection Act. Now we have to see the definition of a consumer. Who is consumer? A consumer is generally understood as a person who uses or consumes goods or avail of any services. So consumer is a person who uses, consumes goods or avails any services. Under the Consumer Protection Act 1986, a consumer is defined as follows: any person who buys any goods for a consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any scheme of deferred payment. It includes any users of such goods when such use is made with the approval of the buyer, but does not include a person who obtained goods for resale or for any commercial purpose. So here in this definition, a consumer has been defined. So who is the consumer? A consumer is a person who buys a product and pays some consideration in return. Sometimes that consideration may be paid, or sometimes it may be a promise. Sometimes it may be partly paid and partly promised, or it may be some scheme of deferred payment too. It includes any users of the goods. So consumer is a person who is actually using that goods and he is not obtaining that goods for resale or for some commercial purpose. So this is the definition for consumer. The second definition says that this is related to goods and this is related to services. You can find the wordings of this is almost the same, only wherever you find the goods you have to replace it with service. Any person who has or avails any services for a consideration which has been paid or promised, or partly paid and partly promised, or under any scheme of deferred payment. It includes any beneficiaries or services when such services are availed of with the approval of the person concerned, but does not include a person who avails of service for commercial purpose. So same is the explanation for this. Instead of the word goods, here they are using services. Now, who can file a complaint under the Consumer Protection Act 1986? Under the Consumer Protection Act 1986, a complaint before the appropriate consumer court can be made by any consumer, any registered consumer associations, the central government or any government, state government, one or more consumers on behalf of numerous consumers having the same interest, and a legal heir or representative of a deceased consumer. So these are the 5 parties who can complain under the Consumer Protection Act. They are any consumer can do that, or a registered consumer association is there, they can do it, or a central government or a state government can do it, or more than one consumers, and that is they are representing number of consumers with the same interest, or a legal heir or a representative of a deceased consumer. So these are the 5 parties. Now, what are the remedies or relief available to a consumer? There are 12 remedies available to a consumer if they have some, if they have to face some problem while using that product or availing that services. Let us see the remedies or relief available to the consumer. First one is to remove the defect in the goods or deficiency. See, if the consumer have any problem and they went to consumer court, then these are the remedies which will be available in front of court, or they will give the following relief to the consumers. To remove the defect in the goods or deficiency, that is removal of defect. To replace the defective product with a new one free from any defects. So replacing the defective product is one option. To refund the price paid for the product or charges paid for the services. So they can the businessman had to refund the money to the consumer, to pay a reasonable amount of compensation for any loss or injury suffered by the consumer due to the negligence of the opposite party. So due to the negligence of the seller, if the consumer have to face any injury or losses, that have to be compensated by the seller. To discontinue the exploitative or unfair trade practices and not to repeat it in the future. So the court may order to discontinue the unfair trade practices and not to repeat it in the future. Not to offer hazardous goods to sales. That may be one option. To withdraw the hazardous goods from sales. So dangerous goods, whatever is kept for sale, that can be removed from the sales. To cease manufacturer of hazardous goods and to desist from offering hazardous services. So ceasing the manufacturing of hazardous goods is one option. To pay any amount not less than 5% of the value of defective goods or deficient services provided to be credited to the Consumer Welfare Fund or any other organization or person to be utilized in the prescribed manner. So 5% of the value of the defective goods should be credited to Consumer Welfare Fund or any other organization. Then to issue corrective advertisement to neutralize the effect of a misleading advertisement. If through the advertisement, misleading advertisement, any person use that product and something happened to that person, then court may order that to correct that advertisement, neutralize the effect. That is, they have to neutralize or give a publicity, give an advertisement in the newspaper neutralizing the advertisement which is given, which was the misleading advertisement. Then the 11th point is to pay adequate cost to the appropriate party. So whatever is adequate cost according to the circumstances have to be paid to the other party. To pay punitive damages in appropriate circumstances. So any damage faced by the consumer have to be paid by the buyer. Rights of consumers. In total, there are 6 rights available to the consumers. The first right is right to safety. The consumer has a right to be protected against goods and services which are hazardous to life and health. So those goods which are dangerous to the life and health, from that the consumers has a right to be protected against those goods. Thus, consumers are educated that they should use ISI marked electrical appliance only for the assurance of quality. So, ISI mark is the quality assurance given to the electronic gadgets. So, while making a purchase of electrical gadgets, you should be educated to use this ISI mark. So, consumers should be educated that they should use ISI mark product only. So that is our first right, that is right to safety. Next, right to be informed. The consumer has a right to have complete information about the product he or she intends to buy, including its ingredients, date of manufacture, price, quality, direction for use, etc. So nobody should cheat the consumer because of their ignorance. So he or she should have complete knowledge about the goods before making a purchase. So right to be informed is one of the right of consumer. Right to choose. The consumer has a right to choose from a variety of products at competitive prices. Therefore, the marketer should offer a wide variety of products in terms of quality, brand, price, size, etc. So, it is a right of a consumer to choose from a variety of product at the competitive prices. The next right is the right to be heard. The consumer has the right to file a complaint and to be heard in case of dissatisfaction with goods or services. So, if we are purchasing a goods which falls short of our expectation, we have the right to complain for that dissatisfaction of the product. It is because of this reason that many enlightened business firms have set up their own consumer organization, and NGOs are also working towards this direction. Children, you may have noticed that in the product which we are using, you can find a toll-free number. where you can register, or we can call and we can register the complaint related to the product. So that is according to the right to be heard. Next is right to seek redressal. The consumer has a right to get relief in case of defective goods or deficient services. The Consumer Protection Act 1986 provides a number of relief to the consumers. So if we that is, it is our right that we can get the relief for in case the goods are defective or service is deficient. So according to the Act of 1986, we had number of relief available, and that relief we have studied in our previous class. Next is right to consumer education. The consumer has a right to acquire knowledge and to be a well-informed consumer throughout life. He or she should be aware of his or her right and the relief available to him or her in case the product or services fall short of his or her expectation. So there are many rights available. You can see there are 6 rights available to the consumers. So as a consumer, you should use these rights and act against the unfair trade practices and shortcomings you see in any product or services. So this right is to acquire knowledge and to be a well-informed consumer throughout our life. So this is what our rights are. There are 6 rights available to the consumers. Now, what is consumer responsibilities? Be aware about various goods and services available in the market so that an intelligent and wise choice can be made. So before you go for a shopping, you should know what all products are available in the market so that you can make a wise choice. Second responsibility as a consumer is buy only standardized goods as they provide quality assurance. Thus, look for ISI mark on electric goods, FPO marks on food product, hallmark on jewelry, egg mark on agriculture product. You can see here, these are the symbols of these quality assurance products. So this is for FPO stands for food process order, then egg mark you can see, which is seen in the electrical products, gadgets, then egg mark is there, then eco mark is there, and BSI mark which is seen in the jewelries. Okay, so these are some of the quality assurance placed in the product, standardized product. Now read labels carefully so as to have information about price, net weight, manufacturing and expiry dates, etc. So when you make a purchase, you should collect the information related to the product regarding these the following information, that is price, net weight, manufacturing and expiry date. Next is, fourth point is, learn about the risk associated with product and services following manufacturer's instructions and use the product safely. So before you purchase a product, or when you purchase a product, there will be manufacturer's instructions will be provided in that product. So go through that, and if you are going through that, the risk associated with the product can be known to you, and product safety can also be assured. Next is, ask for a cash memo on purchase of goods and services. This would serve as a proof of the purchase made. So as an evidence for your sales, as an evidence of your purchase, you can use the cash memo, and you should ask for the cash memo after your purchase. Assert yourself to ensure that you get a fair deal. You should check yourself that you are getting a fair deal for the purchases you have made. Next, be honest in your dealings. Choose only from legal goods and services, and discourage unfair trade practices like black marketing and hoarding. So you should be honest with your purchases. Don't go behind black marketing or hoarding practices. Don't encourage it also. Next is, file a complaint in an appropriate consumer forum in case of shortcoming in the quality of goods purchased or services availed. Do not fail to take an action even when the amount involved is small. So you have to complain in consumer forum if there is any shortcomings related to the quality of goods or services. So sometimes we can see that, because we will think that it is for a small amount, why we have to go to the court and all to solve this problem. So it is, if we are doing that, it is an encouragement for that sellers. So even if that it involves a small amount, you have to take action against the unfair trade practices. Foreign consumer society, which would play an active part in educating consumers and safeguarding, form consumer societies which would play an active part in educating consumers and safeguarding their interests. So you have to form a consumer society which will safeguard the interest of the consumer. Respect the environment, avoid waste, littering, and contributing to pollution. That is also a responsibility of a consumer to respect the environment.